Welcome to the Adult Basic Skills Professional Development video series. Throughout our productions, we are committed to excellence in adult education and professional development in basic skills instruction. The goal of this video series is to improve the effectiveness and quality of instruction through focused professional development.
Welcome to the Adult Basic Skills Staff Development video series. We are committed to excellence in adult education. The goals of this video series are to improve the effectiveness and quality of instruction through focused staff development. Today we will see how classroom management techniques can maximize student learning. Good instructional management provides both the instructor and student with a systematic plan to accomplish goals. One of the most demanding jobs as an adult basic skills instructor is to effectively manage a classroom of adult learners who have different goals and are on different levels of achievement.
The hardest thing about managing a class is the levels involved in the classroom. The students with so many different desires, so many different goals, and so many different levels right in that classroom. How are you going to be accessible to them? When I first started doing adult basic skills, I was very frustrated with that. I thought, there's no way I can accommodate all of them and do my job well. So I decided that the best way to do that was through management.
A classroom this size can present a real management problem. How is it possible to provide each student with the kind of instruction he needs in order to accomplish his learning goals? Most students work in different materials and on different levels. Adults also possess different learning styles and require different methods of instructional materials to meet those styles. The need for instructional support varies, requiring different amounts of help from the instructor. The pace at which learning takes place varies from student to student. An instructor needs to be resourceful in arranging for more successful experiences for those students who learn at slower rates. These management problems illustrate a need for an instructor to manage the students who are in the classroom, the students' materials, and the amount of time spent with each student on an individual basis. If this sounds complicated, keep in mind that all this must be done while treating each student as an individual and with respect. This kind of management task requires an instructor to have a plan of action for conducting a classroom where students feel valued and are able to learn.
Now what are some of the kinds of things you do in here? When you first get in here, what do you do normally?
Well,
no, I kind of messed up things.
We've had, sometime we take a little card, figure out what they are, she'll hold them out.
Okay.
The first hour we usually read.
Okay.
And
put a T in there.
Then we do a little spelling. We'll take a break, say, and we'll come back.
What happens when you got a new person who walks in the door? What's the process?
Pull them aside and work with them individually. So when Betty's here, that's great because she can work with the group. And often we just change tacks, and if there's too much going on, then she'll read with them or put them in multiple skills so that they can be independent. And then I'll work with them and register them and interview them as to what their wants and goals and things are, and usually do an IRI.
Okay.
Try to get it done that first night so that we can give them some books to take and get them to come back again.
Yeah.
And when she's not here, then it's just that game of trying to find something that everybody else can do. And it does get a little crazy, They need help, and it's distracting to interrupt the testee and all that. Most of the time it works out pretty well.
When organizing a plan for a new student, I first try to decide what are the goals for the student has for himself. Are these goals short-term, long-term? Are they reachable? What kind of background, family history he comes from, and whether these goals are good for him. certainly I like to know a little bit about where he's coming from and what his past experiences have been in school. And after I help him and we set goals together, then I do some assessment and testing and try to find out where he is and how far he has to go to reach those goals. I work very much on a step-by-step mastery type thing. We take it from right exactly where he is and go to where he wants to be. And sometimes that's a short process and sometimes that's a long one. After I do that, I try to think about the student, decide what I can give him to help him reach those goals that are interesting to him, motivating to him, and relevant to his life, certainly tying into the life skills that he, whatever his goals are in the future, his educational goals as well as his vocational goals. After that, I just diagnose and prescribe what will help him get to those goals and keep him on a track where he can fulfill those goals.
So what is the instructor's role in the management process? As you may well know, today's AVS instructor is required to wear many different hats and serve in a variety of ways. Instructors function as greeters, facilitators, counselors, mentors, cooperative planners, and record keepers. Finding the time to teach on top of all these extra duties may seem impossible.
Using small group or large group activities in the Adult Basic Skills classroom will help you tremendously in the management of your time and your instruction time. It will cut your instruction time because people tend to instruct each other in a small group. It's real interesting to watch a small group because the strengths and the weaknesses will come out and they'll learn to cooperate with each other and learn from each other. So it's beneficial not only as a management time saving thing, but it's also a great empowering for the individuals involved.
Adults should be encouraged to take on the responsibility of managing their own learning. They should be able to recognize when the material they are working in is too hard or when it's time to move to the next stage of development. This can be modeled for the students by an instructor who is continuously assessing and assisting each student in the learning process. Before a classroom of adult learners can be managed effectively, the instructor must know each student and what the student's strengths and needs are as learners. This knowledge can be gathered by informal assessment procedures with the goal of finding out what the student can do and what is too difficult for the student at this time. This assessment procedure is important because students in a classroom this size must practice in materials on their independent to instructional level. In other words, students should work in materials where they pronounce at least 98% of the words correctly and comprehend no less than 90% of the material. Any student working in harder materials will be too dependent on others for help and will have more difficulty becoming an independent learner who is responsible for his own learning.
When a student is placed in materials that are too difficult for the student, and sometimes this will happen with a new instructor, it really will throw a big problem into the class management because it takes a lot of time to go back and to look again at the test, to find materials that are right for the student, to get that student over the frustration of that very difficult task and to get him back on track. And I tend to think that any time a student gets into a frustration level, it takes them a long time to get over that. I mean, if you can just keep them on an instructional level and preferably an independent when they're working independently, you'll be better off.
In a typical classroom, most adult students function at different stages of development and learn new concepts at different rates. One student may learn a new word after seeing the word only a few times, while another student may need 50 repetitions in order to learn the same word. As students advance to higher stages of development, continued modifications are needed in instruction. Effective classroom managers monitor students' progress and adjust the pace as needed.
As far as tracking and keeping up with records and what they're doing, I use a portfolio or a folder. Everything that the student does goes into this folder. And all of the critical information is in this folder, maybe an interest inventory on that student, all the assessment that I do, a biographical data, maybe even a case study if I've done that, then just a guided lesson plan daily of what they'll be doing. The beauty of this is that a student can look at this and see where he has come from and where he's headed. He can also go through it himself without a whole lot of help from you as the instructor.
If you don't have the portfolio on the student, then you don't know where the student is or what he's done. And it, especially on multiple skills, it shows what they've accomplished. And I think that is great.
Instructors must also decide how to use classroom instructional time to maximize student learning and reduce boredom. The vertical scale of this time management chart represents the achievement levels, with the easier levels at the bottom and the harder levels at the top. The horizontal scale represents percentage of class time. The following is a breakdown of the amount of time instructors may want to spend on the different types of instruction for students who have been coming to class for a while. For example, out of a 2-hour class period with beginning readers, an instructor may want to spend 10 minutes reading to the students with some discussion. The language experience approach could be utilized for 20 to 30 minutes. As the students advance, this time could be used for various writing activities. Students could spend the next 30 minutes with some specific reading instruction related to a life interest or need. It is always good to get students started with some time set aside for recreational reading, just for enjoyment. The goal is for students to begin to read for pleasure in class. Then hopefully they will want to take the materials home for additional practice. To keep the pace of instruction stimulating, a change to math may be helpful. Try spending 30 minutes in practical word problems and meaningful practice with other math activities. The exact amount of time that students spend in these areas should be negotiable and dependent on the individual student and our professional judgment. However, having some kind of flexible guide may be helpful. Your time schedule may not look exactly like this one, but perhaps this will serve as a model in helping you develop a sense of variety, which may help students gain a greater sense of satisfaction during your class. This schedule may seem too changeable. If so, try changing activities only 2 or 3 times in a 2-hour period. Here are some practical suggestions for improving the management of an adult basic skills class. First, know your students well. Know their goals. Know their strengths, their instructional level, and know their styles of learning and sharing. Next, be familiar with teaching methods and strategies. Know ways to teach knowledge. Know ways to teach skills. Know ways to alter attitudes. Know the advantages and limitations of each method. Know the appropriate and inappropriate uses of each method. And know what can be best accomplished individually and in small or large group. Know your resources well. Know what materials usually assist in helping students learn each part of the curriculum. Know what level of difficulty each resource is. Know how each resource can be used most effectively to utilize student strengths. Have a flexible routine. Have general record-keeping procedures. Have folders with vital student information, such as goals and immediate plans. And have procedures for getting help. Instead of the instructor distributing student work folders at the beginning of class and collecting them at the end of class, allow students to be responsible for getting and putting away their own folders. Encourage students to assume responsibility to help with cooperative, short, and long-range planning with the instructor. Allow each student to practice in materials on their independent reading level during class. This will be less labor-intensive for the instructor and allows the student to assist in managing his own learning. In summary, the benefits of a well-managed classroom are numerous for the instructor and student alike. While instructors benefit from a well-managed classroom, adult students receive the greatest reward. The students establish confidence in their ability to develop a purpose for learning, assist in developing a plan to carry out that learning, monitor their own progress, seek help when needed, evaluate progress, and assist in determining if and when the desired learning has been accomplished. In the process, students are encouraged to become independent learners. Good classroom management techniques are important because students learn how to learn and at the same time become responsible for managing their own lifelong learning. Instructors benefit from having more successful students. Instructors have more time to devote to providing direct instruction and more meaningful guided practice. More time can be spent with all of the students instead of moving from one crisis to another. A well-managed classroom will allow the instructor to have a greater sense of satisfaction. Good management facilitates empowerment. Good management is inclusive, purposeful, efficient, and effective. The essence of effective instructional management is the successful accomplishment of student goals.